Right now, America's car lots are overflowing with $867 billion in unsold vehicles. Trucks, SUVs, and electric cars that once sparked bidding wars are now sitting untouched, collecting dust and draining dealers with daily interest bills. The same industry that bragged about record profits just a year ago is now trapped under the weight of its own greed. Dealers who once slapped $10,000 markups on pickups are quietly offering fire sale discounts just to survive. Behind the glossy ads and showroom lights, the market is collapsing in slow motion. But how did it all flip so quickly? Just a few years ago, automakers engineered scarcity, turned shortages into profits, and trained buyers to pay anything. Now their lots look more like graveyards of rotting inventory, while banks, workers, and entire towns brace for the fallout. This isn't just a story about cars, it's about how unchecked greed backfired, creating the biggest car market reckoning in decades. And for the first time in years, the power isn't with the automakers, it's with you. When the pandemic hit, the auto industry saw an opportunity. With factories slowed and parts in short supply, dealers flipped the script overnight. Suddenly, cars that once sat waiting for buyers became rare gems with price tags that seemed untouchable. A Toyota Tacoma listed at $42,000 was suddenly selling for nearly $60,000. A Ford F-150 Lightning carried a $20,000 markup on top of MSRP. And if you didn't want it, someone else would. It wasn't about earning a fair profit anymore. It was about wringing every last dollar from desperate buyers. The greed paid off, at least for a while. Between 2020 and 2022, industry data showed that over 80% of new vehicles sold above sticker price. Average markups ballooned past $4,000, while luxury models doubled that. Gone were the days of cashback deals, 0% financing, and year-end blowouts. Instead, buyers were stuck on waiting lists, forced to leave non-refundable deposits, and told to take it or leave it. For the dealers, every car that rolled off a truck was a jackpot. For consumers, it was nothing short of legalized robbery. What made the crisis worse was that it wasn't all about chip shortages or shipping delays. Many dealers discovered that if they held back cars, keeping them in storage lots or releasing inventory just a trickle at a time, they could keep prices sky high. Cars weren't just scarce, they were made scarce. Customers would drive past empty-looking lots, not knowing dozens of brand-new vehicles were stashed away out of sight, waiting to be released only when the next desperate buyer showed up with cash in hand. This strategy turned car buying into a rigged game. Dealers charged reservation fees just to get on a list. Automakers leaned into the shortage narrative, fueling the illusion of scarcity while pocketing record profits. For years, buyers had been trained to haggle, walk away, and shop around. But in this new era, those rules didn't matter. If you wanted a car, you paid their price, no questions asked. And with every inflated sale, the industry grew more addicted to the easy money. By 2021, the gamble had turned into a gold rush. Ford's profit margins nearly quadrupled. GM pulled in $10 billion in net income. And Stellantis shattered its own records, with over $23 billion in operating profit. Dealers who once earned a modest $2,000 on a new vehicle were suddenly clearing $5,000 or more, sometimes double that on luxury SUVs and trucks. Social media filled with posts of sales managers bragging about markups like trophies, proof that buyers would swallow almost anything as long as the lot was nearly empty. The success blinded the industry. Automakers openly admitted they weren't chasing volume anymore. They were chasing margins. Every car shipped became a jackpot, and the fewer they built, the more they earned. Buyers who had once expected discounts and incentives were now treated as obstacles to profit. Long-time customers, employee programs, even factory incentives were tossed aside. It wasn't a temporary strategy. It became the new business model. And in that moment of euphoria, nobody in the industry asked the question that mattered most: what happens when the music stops? By 2024, the cracks were impossible to ignore. The average new car payment had soared to $745 a month, with nearly 1 in 5 buyers signing contracts that stretched past $1,000. Loan terms ballooned to 72 and even 84 months, just to make the numbers look manageable. Subprime borrowers, anyone with a credit score under 620, were staring down interest rates of 15 to 21%. What used to be the excitement of driving home in a new car became a financial anchor, dragging families deeper into debt before they ever left the dealership lot. And it wasn't just the car payment. Insurance premiums jumped 20% in 2 years, registration fees climbed in half the states, and fuel costs never returned to pre-pandemic levels. The true cost of owning a new car blew past $1,100 a month, more than rent for millions of households. Shoppers started walking away in droves, applications for auto loans dropped, and dealership foot traffic slowed to a trickle. The era of take it or leave it was collapsing, and for the first time in years, buyers were choosing to leave it. When buyers stopped signing, the system jammed. Dealerships that once bragged about having waiting lists suddenly found their lots overflowing. Cars sat for 110, 150, even 220 days without moving. What looked like a shiny row of trucks and SUVs under the sun was really a ticking time bomb of debt. Every vehicle carried a hidden cost, $50 to $80 per day in floor plan interest. For a mid-sized dealer, that meant burning through $100,000 or more each month just to keep cars parked. To hide the mess, many dealers started renting off-site storage yards, scattering unsold inventory across abandoned malls, shuttered airports, and gravel lots miles from their showrooms. But moving the cars didn't stop the bills. The interest kept piling up, insurance had to be paid, and batteries kept dying in the summer heat. What began as record profits had morphed into a burden so heavy that dealers were drowning under the very inventory they once fought to hoard. As lots overflowed and sales froze, the fallout landed hardest on workers. Ford slashed output by 35%, Stellantis cut 15,000 jobs in a single quarter, and GM idled plants from Michigan to Illinois. Assembly lines that had roared during the profit boom fell silent. Cafeterias closed early, and families who had depended on steady paychecks for decades were left staring at layoff notices. In towns built around auto plants, the silence wasn't just inside the factories. It spread to diners, shops, and schools that had thrived on the industry's wages. The ripple effect was brutal. Suppliers from Ohio to Ontario shuttered after canceled orders, while small machine shops and parts makers went bankrupt almost overnight. More than 50,000 auto-related jobs vanished in just 6 months, and with them went mortgages, healthcare, and stability for entire communities. For workers who had weathered the pandemic, this collapse felt worse, not a natural disaster, but the direct result of corporate greed and reckless overproduction. What once kept America moving was now tearing its own backbone apart. The pain didn't stop at the factories. Banks and lenders, once eager to bankroll dealer inventory, suddenly found themselves exposed. Floor plan loans, once considered safe, turned toxic as dealers missed payments on cars that were losing value by the day. GM Financial carried over $15 billion in dealer receivables. Ally held nearly the same, and delinquencies were climbing fast. Each unsold vehicle was collateral that depreciated the longer it sat, leaving lenders holding metal worth less than the loans they backed. Wholesale auctions began to overflow with repossessed stock, but even at fire sale prices, half the cars went unsold. Credit unions tightened lending, pension funds saw returns shrink from auto-backed securities, and local banks absorbed double hits, defaults from both consumers and dealers. The system that once seemed bulletproof was cracking under its own weight. What started as a mountain of unsold cars had morphed into a financial contagion, spreading from showroom floors to Wall Street balance sheets. With debt mounting and lots overflowing, dealers had no choice but to flip the script again. Trucks and SUVs that once sold for thousands over sticker were now slashed by $8,000, $10,000, even $13,000 just to move metal. Ford F-150s came with factory rebates stacked on dealer markdowns, bringing some trims under $40,000 for the first time in years. Chevy and Ram followed suit, offering zero-down leases and 0% financing, deals that had disappeared during the greed years. For the first time in a decade, buyers were walking into showrooms with real leverage. Even the electric market, once untouchable, was caught in the fire sale. Teslas dropped nearly $15,000 in a year. Mercedes and Lucid EVs saw $18,000 chopped off their tags, and Chevy Bolts went out the door for less than the price of a used Corolla after stacking incentives and tax credits. Luxury buyers who had once fought for reservations were now pocketing discounts they never imagined possible. What dealers once called unicorns had become liabilities, and they were practically paying customers to take them away. The mountain of unsold cars, worth a staggering $867 billion, is more than an inventory problem. It's the consequence of years of greed-driven strategy colliding with economic reality. Automakers trained buyers to accept outrageous markups, dealers built fortunes on engineered scarcity, and lenders fueled the frenzy with easy money. But when prices climbed beyond what families could afford, the entire system collapsed under its own weight. Now factories sit idle, dealers bleed cash, and banks scramble to cover losses on assets that are worth less every single day. For consumers, though, this marks a turning point. After years of being squeezed, buyers hold the leverage. Discounts are back, incentives are stacking, and dealers are desperate to clear space before the next bill comes due. The story began with shortages, greed, and sky-high markups. But it ends with a reversal no one in the industry wanted to see. The car market apocalypse is here, and for the first time in years, the power is back in your hands. The rise and fall of this market tells a simple story. Greed has limits. For years, automakers and dealers rewrote the rules, convinced they could squeeze buyers forever. But when the math stopped working for everyday families, the empire began to crumble. What started as a golden age of profits has turned into a reckoning measured in layoffs, bankruptcies, and billions of dollars in unsold cars collecting dust. And yet, hidden in the wreckage is an opportunity. For the first time in over a decade, the buyer holds the upper hand. Discounts once thought impossible are back, and leverage has shifted away from the automakers who believed they were untouchable. This isn't just a collapse, it's a correction. A reminder that no industry, no matter how powerful, can escape the consequences of unchecked greed. The only question now is whether the automakers learn from it, or repeat the cycle all over again.